There is a lot of talk about depression, anxiety. You hear more and more young people committing suicide. There's something going on in our country that really needs attention, needs to be dealt with. It doesn't make sense as young people to be taking your life like that or have anxiety or depressed. It is happening. Michael Lohan is with me. He is the father of seven, including actress Lindsay Lohan. He is a recovery expert and highly affirmed ordained minister. And he's here to talk about the rise in mental illness, anxiety, and depression in teenage girls, especially girls from more affluent and better educated families. So if you have a lot of money, you're educated, they're finding that more and more girls are dealing with anxiety, depression, and mental illness. Michael, good morning, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you?
All is well. Thank you for coming on. Very interesting topic. I'm looking forward to having this discussion with you. But first, what is a highly affirmed ordained minister? What does that mean, affirmed?
I don't know. I have to call him and ask him what that means. I'm an ordained minister. Is what I am. I mean, I do a lot of work with ministries such as Teen Challenge and the Assemblies of God, when it's related to addiction and the addiction community. I speak at some churches like I did my children's school this weekend. But affirmed, I don't know what that means. I'm going to have to ask them.
All right. I read that symptoms of mental illness among teenage girls is more than twice as common as boys and has risen by 10% in the last decade. First of all, is that true? And if so, why has it risen?
Well, there's a number of factors, but a lot of it has to do. Look, I relate everything to substance abuse, and as I see it, my statistics show that we have a lot more younger girls in treatment these days than we do boys. I don't know if it's hormonal or not, but I will tell you this: once people start using substances or alcohol, it alters their brain chemistry, and that actually creates the mental imbalance. That creates the psychological component of treatment to be thrown off. And to be honest with you, the whole model is broken anyway because it's not treated the right way, because once people do develop some kind of mental illness or dual diagnosis, they're treating the mind. Look at it this way. They're talking to a cut on your arm, and talking to a cut's not going to heal it. There's other modalities and other treatments you need, medical treatments you need, that are going to help heal the mind. So the people aren't getting treated, and it's just getting worse and worse.
And well, what is causing young girls to get into substance abuse? What's bringing that on?
Well, I mean, it depends upon the demographic and where they are, but I mean, a lot of it has to do with relationship issues, with family issues, with boy issues, and then hormones, of course. I mean, it's very. We've traced it back, and a lot of substance abuse has to do with genetics and hormonal. So, it's more. We have to look at things from a scientific standpoint than we do, a recovery standpoint these days, and we're just not doing that.
I over the last 26 years, I've counseled with boys and girls, young and old, who are dealing with anxiety and depression, mental illness. And what I find is that 98% of the time, maybe more than that, it comes from the lack of a good relationship with their parents, and especially with the fathers. And the parents are failing their children. They're causing them to become angry. And once you become angry, you're disconnected from God. And that brings on depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts and things like that. Could that be the primary reason, is because the parents are failing the children?
I think that's a component of it, but let's face it, I mean, at a young age, absolutely. But as people get older, it's a choice. It's an individual choice, and, you can't blame the parents after a while.
But how's it
are
a choice if you've gotten into this as a young age and you don't understand that it's the anger that's bringing on the conflict, and then when you have inner conflict like that, you use outside things to make you feel better, and as you get older, because no one has really told you how to overcome it, how is it a choice? They're stuck in it now.
You're right. I mean, I truly believe that inner conflict shouldn't be dealt with outside remedies, because most of those remedies are wrong. But going back to what you were saying before, we really have to look at the genesis of addiction, where it started, what the triggers are, where the trauma was, and most of it does have to do with relationships or family, or when kids are going through difficulty with their families, or families get divorced, there's a huge abandonment issues, and then kids start walking away from their families. They don't take their advice anymore. As a matter of fact, even with my own family, if I told my daughter what to do, she did the opposite or it pushed her further away. It's not until you start rationalizing and giving your kids advice instead of telling them what to do that they start to listen to you. But it really is a spiritual thing more than anything, because I mean, let's bring it right back to God again. God represents the truth. He represents all that's good. And the devil represents lies and all that's bad. And if you look at addiction, or, whether it's alcohol use or drug consumption, one or the other, those aren't things that God condones. So it's, it's a simple, it seems like a simple choice. Either do the things that God wants you to do or don't. But it's very difficult for people to really, to fight that battle. And it's a spiritual battle that they're fighting.
So if it's a spiritual, and I agree with you that it is a spiritual battle, and it does start with the fathers and mothers being a bad example for their children. And once you turn away from your father like that, you turn away from God. And so you have a lot of conflict. If it is spiritual, and I agree that it is, why call it? Why say that is due to substance abuse or anything other? Because if you tell them that it's something else that's causing it, they're never going to look at the fact that it is a spiritual thing. Why call it something else if it is spiritual?
Well, let's call it one thing: doing the wrong thing. If you're using drugs or drinking alcohol to an excess, especially if you're a minor, it's doing the wrong thing. So you have a choice: either do the right thing or wrong thing. And unfortunately, I mean, I call it a broken heart syndrome. And these kids or people in general have a broken heart. They fill that crack with all the wrong things. They're constantly trying to drown the sorrow and numb the pain, and that's not the answer. What the truth is that God is the answer, and that's why spiritual programs probably have the best recovery rate of any in the United States, if not the world. I mean, you have programs like Teen Challenge. Teen Challenge started off as for teens, but it's for adults now. But Teen Challenge has over a 70% recovery rate, when most traditional treatment centers have a 90% failure rate. So you tell me, is it a God thing or not?
When you say they have a broken heart, what is the broken heart? What causes the broken heart?
It can be so many things. It can be abuse. It can be abandonment issues. It could be a divorce. It could be some kind of trauma. There can be loss of a loved one. There's so many different things that can be the primary or the trigger or the fundamental trauma that occurred in someone's life that really leads to addiction. The problem is, instead of nipping it in the bud and addressing it when it starts, when that trauma presented itself, they wait too long and the trauma proliferates. It snowballs and gets worse and worse. I'll give you an example. A child has parents that divorce. That's very traumatic for a child. So that's the first trauma. Now all of a sudden they start drinking and using drugs, and they get caught driving a car when they're not supposed to, and they go to jail. Now jail is the second trauma. When they're in jail, they get in a fight and they get thrown in the hole. The hole is the third trauma. When they get out, they go to a sober house and they get raped or whatever. That's a fourth trauma. It gets worse and worse. It's like you have to peel that onion. Hopefully there's only a few things at the core, or one thing at the core, but if you wait too long, there's a lot of layers you have to peel and a lot of things you have to address. So it's always best to try to, hit it when it happens and try to address it right away. But unfortunately, people don't address it right away. They wait too long, and then it gets harder and harder to get to the core of what the real problem is.
I read in this report that this is happening with girls from more affluent families. What are these parents doing wrong to these girls, to their daughters, that is causing this to go up, the affluent family?
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
I read that mental illness, anxiety, and depression is going up with girls from affluent families. What are these families doing wrong that's causing this number to go up like this for these girls?
You know what? It's entitlement issues, and it's enabling. When families don't have much, there's not much they can do to make the matters worse. I have so many clients that come from good families, and listen, I'm not saying any family isn't good or bad. It's just that some people have more that they can afford their kids, and by doing that, sometimes you're feeding the fire. So the affluence of a family, and their wealth actually acts against them. They give them more things. They're afforded more treatment. They say to themselves, look, if I mess up, I can go to treatment. And then they mess up again, I can afford to go to treatment again. And again, when some
hold that
people
thought
don't
for
have
me, Michael. Hold that thought. Let me take a short break here. Back in a moment. Okay, I was talking to Michael Lohan. He is the father of Lindsay Lohan. And Michael's on a cell phone, so we're going to have to get him back. Hopefully before this hour is up, we'll work on it. So I'm taking your calls. 888-7753-773. 888-77-JESSE. Apparently the mental illness, anxiety, and depression in teenage girls are gone up. And we're trying to find out or figure out why. Why is that happening? And Michael made the point that these girls, some of them are being spoiled. If you got the money, you tend to spoil your kids. And nowadays you have fathers and mothers working. And so a lot of kids growing up feeling unloved because they're not getting the proper attention from their parents. They're not getting it from their parents. So hopefully we can get Michael back on here in a few minutes. Okay, welcome back. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. I do appreciate it. We're going to have to reschedule Michael Lohan for another time here. I want more time with him. So he's on a cell, and I couldn't hardly hear him. I could hear him, but it wasn't clear. We were talking about the fact that depression and anxiety is going up amongst girls from affluent families. So we'll get back to that report at another time. In the meantime, I'm going to take your calls at 888-77-JESSE. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.